Hello and welcome to a review of the Sage Bambino Plus. Now, just a little bit of background. Sage's coffee machines have been amazing for me so far. The best coffee machine I would say I have used in the past has been the Sage Barista Touch. The only reason I don't own that coffee machine is because I use Nespresso because it's so much more convenient and quick. But let's take a look and see if this machine is enough to change my mind. Now, let's start off with a quick unboxing just so you can see what you get in the nicely printed box. This machine is currently selling for £399, but again, it's often on sale for much lower than that. Let's start off with the water tank. This water tank is 1.9 litres and it has some good information on the back, like how to descale, clean the steamer, change the filter, and so forth. You also get the razor tool, which is for precision dose trimming. So when you put your coffee in, you just turn the basket underneath it. You get a water filter holder. You get your milk container. You get 2 cleaning tablets, your portafilter. This is probably the only part of this machine that feels a little bit tacky and plasticky because the handle just doesn't feel great. Doesn't have too much of a solid weight to it. Definitely not like what you can get with more expensive machines, but you can replace that part yourself. Now, this machine does come with 1 cup single and 2 cup single wall baskets, and it also comes with a dual filter basket, and that is for the pre-ground coffee, whereas the single wall cup is for when you ground your own coffee. Also, the tamper tool, again, feels a bit tacky and plasticky, easily replaced if you wanted to. The machine itself looks absolutely beautiful. The stainless steel, as you can see, this is before I've actually used it for the first time, but once you get a few specks of water on this, it's pretty hard to keep it looking as good, but it is a very good looking machine and it does come in 2 other colors. Over here you can see the milk wand, which really impressed me. We'll get onto that later. And there's also a QR code, which if you use, you can download an app from the App Store called Built. When you go in the app, there's a lot of other products from different manufacturers that also have their product in the app, which will be a little bit confusing in terms of finding your exact product. And also when you go back to it, I remember searching my app list for Sage and I was thinking, where is it? And then I realized, oh yeah, it's in a different app called Built that I need to find my product. But saying that, the app is actually very, very good. Gives you step-by-step instructions on exactly how to do everything from using the machine to cleaning it to first use. It's very, very impressive. You can even zoom in and rotate a 3D model of your product. Overall, the app is very well made.
Plug the machine in and press the 1 cup, 2 cup, or steam button to turn the machine on.
Just going back to the filter for a second, these are expected to last you 3 months. Keep in mind that these cost £15 each in the UK, so you're looking at about £60 a year cost for replacing filters on this, which isn't exactly cheap. And at the same time, even with the filter, you still need to descale, so kind of makes you wonder what's the point if you still need to use the descaling kit, which you need to purchase separately. With Nespresso machines, you tend to just have to buy the descaling kit. There's a little pin in the back of the device. I thought it wasn't in the box. I accidentally ran into it. And this is simply for unclogging your milk frother if it gets clogged up. In the weeks I use this machine on a daily basis multiple times, never had an issue with it. Now with the tamper, it's pretty good that the line where the silver meets the black on this, it's when you push down on your coffee, that's where they're supposed to meet each other. That's when you know you've put in the right amount of coffee in your portafilter. So just to show you here, as you can see, when I tamp, you can see that silver line and the black line is where the top of my coffee comes to an end, and that basically lets you know that you have put in the right amount of coffee. So let's go ahead and let's make our first cup of coffee. Now the Sage turns on in 3 seconds and it's ready to go. So I was actually super excited to make my first cup of coffee with this, given the experience I had with the Sage Barista Touch. Now extracting my first cup of coffee came out perfect, came out in about 9 seconds. Now just so you know, if the water starts flowing in 1 to 7 seconds, that's too fast. You're going to get pale brown coffee, it's going to be bitter, sharp, and it's going to taste pretty weak. If it's taken more than 13 seconds, then it means that it's too dark, you're going to get brown, bitter, burnt coffee. So in that case, you'd want a coarser coffee, whereas in the previous case of 1 to 7 seconds, you would want a finer grind. So 8 to 12 seconds is perfect, and I didn't once have a problem with this. Now it has lovely crema, came out really nice, the temperature was good, we'll go into that more in a minute. I wish it had something that would rise your espresso cup to be closer to where the coffee comes down so it doesn't splash out and make the cup look a little bit mucky like it does here. Not a huge thing, but something worth keeping in mind. Now, a great thing is so many coffee machines these days, especially with milk attachments, you can't just fit in any cup of coffee you want. With this, you can. I tried all my different cups. They all fit in fine and perfect without a problem. So I was actually super excited to make more coffee with this. The razor trimming tool really helped to make sure that everything was perfect. And I made cup after cup and it came out consistently pretty much perfect. I mean, even with the Sage Barista Touch, I had to keep experimenting with different coarseness of coffee because it was a bean to cup device to get the extraction to come out perfectly. With this, it came out perfect every time. Now, it's worth keeping in mind that you do want to go to a local coffee house and you want to get your coffee with a roasted on date. So 5 to 20 days after the roasted date is when the coffee is at its best. You don't want a best before, you don't want to use by, you want a roasted on date. Things were looking really good with this machine early on, so I thought to myself, okay, there's got to be something that gives way, because this device, whilst it's £399 at the moment, it, again, like other Sage's other coffee machines, it drops down to half that price on a regular basis. Now, the temperature is something that has let me down on so many coffee machines in the past. Just for reference, 195 degrees Fahrenheit is the ideal temperature for an espresso. As it begins to extract, obviously it's going to get colder immediately as it starts to extract into your cup, especially if your cup is at room temperature and not heated, which is why more expensive coffee machines have a heating plate on top to keep your cups warm. Once it gets into the cup, you'd want it to be around 150 to 170 is what's the acceptable rate, and 155 to 165 is what's expected to be the perfect temperature for an espresso. Now, in an espresso cup that was not preheated, this gave me a temperature of 158 degrees, which is in the perfect range. I think it's important to let people know the shortcomings of a product so they're not disappointed when they get it. But I found it very, very difficult to find any sort of deal breaker on this. Maybe if I had to nitpick, I would say it's light. So when you put in the portafilter, it slides around pretty easily. Cup actually glides across the bottom of the drip tray. Even the cups on top of there were vibrating and moving around when coffee was being extracted. So it's worth keeping that in mind. If you put any cups on top, they may actually fall. So keep that in mind. And you want to watch it if you want to put light cups underneath, because they will move about. Now we're going to use the milk frother to froth some milk, and let's see how it does. First thing you're going to want to do, especially for the first use, is just purge the wand. Water does kind of go a little bit everywhere, so you do need to keep a cloth to hand to clean that up. But let's test out the milk frother. We're going to start with regular cold milk. So let's see what this does. You can do this manually, but I wanted to see what the machine does itself. No milk frother so far for me has been as good as the Aeroccino 4 that Nespresso made. No machine has made as much froth, especially when it comes to alternative milks such as almond and oat milk. As far as the regular milk goes, first use, doing it automatically, not manually, I was pleasantly surprised. Take a look at how much foam comes out of this device. I mean, the foam is light, it's airy. The milk temperature, you can set it at 3 different levels, just the same as you can set the foam at 3 different levels. All the tests I've done here has been with the foam set at the highest level, and the milk you can choose 3 temperatures, which is weirdly enough listed in the manual as warm, ideal, and hot. I always put it on hot, and it did a good job. Now you do want to clean your wand with a damp cloth. As you can see, I've only left this about a minute, but the milk's already dried on there. So you do want to get a damp cloth and give that a good clean so it doesn't stick on there. And every time you put it down, it'll automatically purge afterwards. And again, one of the few downsides is the milk does kind of tend to go a little bit all over your countertop, and you need to wash this out. I mean, take a look at that. I left that after the first time I used this, and there was an awful smell when I came back because I'd forgotten to empty it. You need to wash this out after every single use, essentially. And I think after a couple of purges, it will fill up anyway and overflow. So once you've done that, you have to wash your drip tray and obviously your milk container and wipe down the wand. I mean, it's one of the quickest machines to clean, so I was very impressed by that. Oh, and you can also froth the milk manually. Probably not a good idea to do it while you're trying to hold a camera in another hand and looking through the camera lens, because then this happens, and yeah, kind of went everywhere. To be honest with you, this is probably the only machine ever where you can manually froth the milk, but I would let the machine do it for me because it does such a good job of it. So a few other things to keep in mind is, yes, you can program the shot volume, really easy to do. Also, 9 bars of pressure is what's considered widely as the perfect pressure for making an espresso. Most cheap machines will use 15 bars of pressure. Now this does have a 15 bar pump, but a 9 bar valve is inside. So without getting too technical, essentially you're getting 9 bars of pressure because it has something inside which stops it from going over 9 bars. So yeah, it's perfect in that sense as well. Now this definitely is the best milk frother attached to a coffee machine that I've used, period. And it may be as good as the Nespresso standalone Aeroccino 4 that I have. There's really not much here not to like. Now, as far as the temperature of the milk goes, this has been a weak point in a lot of coffee machines that I've reviewed and used. So I was really eager to test it out with this and see what kind of temperatures I got. Now, they say you should stop heating the milk at 140 degrees Fahrenheit, as that is the perfect temperature to mix the milk with the coffee. Now, in anticipation of this being like the vast majority of other coffee machines I've used, which has an integrated milk frother, the milk ends up being not hot enough. With this, it actually went up to 172 degrees on the hottest setting. So I would bring that temperature down to ideal, which is in the middle of the 3 bars. Okay, so let's see if it does have any weak points. Let's try oat milk. Oat milk is a nightmare on almost every milk frother I have ever used. Now, take a look at the review here for this machine, for example. It was supposed to have a automated milk frother, and when I used oat milk with it, next to non-existent. I'll put a link of that review up in the corner right now. So I had my oat milk in, which was the biggest test. Got my coffee grounded, added some ice because it is a very hot day in London. I know UK always rains, but it's actually been an insanely hot summer. Again, this thing just completely blew me away. The quality and amount of froth I got from oat milk on this is by far better than any standalone machine with a milk frother built in, and it's probably on par with the milk frother that comes with the Aeroccino 4. You do have a few things to clean. You got to clean the drip tray, you got to clean the portafilter, so you got to clean the basket. The machine, after a few uses, as you can see here, water's kind of splashed back onto it, so I had to really wipe it down to keep it looking nice and fresh. But again, these just feel like I'm nitpicking here. This is a very good coffee machine. The only other thing to really bear in mind is that you do need to get a good grinder separately, and a good grinder costs you about £100 if you get a good one on sale. So factor that into the price. So overall, the only thing that I would say would stop me from getting this machine is at full price, I wouldn't get it solely because it's £400. If you get a good coffee grinder, that's also not on full price. You're looking at about £550. For £500, or sometimes even as low as £440, I've seen the Sage Barista Touch, and that machine is a bean to cup machine, so you don't need to bother with a separate grinder, and it has a very good grinder built in. It also has better quality feel to it. It has far more adjustments with the display. You can program each cup of coffee exactly how you want it, and then you can save it, and you can even name it. So you can name it, you know, Michael's Perfect Cup of Coffee, or whatever you want to name it. Everyone can have their own names and their own cups pre-programmed and saved inside. And the fact that that could be had for less than this at certain times of the year when this isn't on sale, and that is, makes me think that I would definitely go for that every time, because it makes the cup of coffee it makes is just as good. The milk frother, now I know I've said constantly that this is the best milk frother I've used. That milk frother is essentially, it's the same milk frother, so it's just as good as what you're getting on here. And just in general, all the little parts are better quality and better built on that. So for that specific reason, if that machine didn't exist, I would say 100% this, in terms of price, value, is the best non-Nespresso machine. So if you're not into Nespresso and capsules, this is, for me, the best all-round machine when it comes to price to value ratio. But unfortunately, that bigger brother of this device is out there. It does nothing worse It does a lot of stuff the same and it does a lot of stuff better. So let us know what you think of this coffee machine if you own one, and have a great rest of your day.